I'm Tom, and this is Tom Thinks. I'm here to cut through the Wall Street jargon and give you the real talk on your money, even if it hurts your feelings a little bit. If you're someone who feels like you're working harder than ever but getting further behind, if medical bills keep you up at night, or if you're worried that the system is rigged against the average person, hit subscribe and give this video a thumbs up. Now, here's a question that should make you uncomfortable. What if I told you that right now, as you're watching this, your most sensitive financial and health information might already be in the hands of criminals? And what if that's just one piece of a much larger financial trap that's been systematically built around the average American? The healthcare financial trap. Look, let's start with something that hits close to home for everyone: healthcare. Now, here's what most people don't realize. When you think about financial stress, you probably think about your mortgage, your car payment, maybe your credit card debt. But honestly, the single biggest financial threat to the average American isn't any of those things. It's the healthcare system. And I'm not just talking about the outrageous costs of procedures or prescription drugs. I'm talking about something even more insidious: the data, your data. Here's the thing. According to research from the HIPAA Journal, healthcare data breaches are happening at an alarming rate. We're talking about millions of records being exposed. One business associate data breach alone affected 55,000 members of a welfare benefit plan. Another breach at Conduent Business Services swelled to more than 14.7 million victims. Now, you might be thinking, Tom, that's just data. What's the big deal? Stay with me here, because this is where it gets interesting. When your healthcare information gets stolen, it's not just about privacy, it's about money. Medical identity theft is one of the most profitable crimes out there. Criminals can use your health insurance information to get expensive treatments, purchase medical equipment, or file fraudulent claims. And guess who ends up paying for that? You do, through higher premiums, through denied claims when you actually need care, and through the countless hours spent trying to clean up the mess. But here's what most people don't realize. The financial impact goes way beyond just identity theft. Think about the settlements. One medical center agreed to a $1 million settlement. Another hospital paid $1.1 million. An eye center settlement was $750,000. Now, where do you think that money comes from? It doesn't magically appear. Those costs get passed along. They get baked into the price of every procedure, every hospital stay, every insurance premium. You're paying for the broken system every single time you get medical care. And here's the psychological insight. We've been conditioned to think of healthcare as something separate from our finances. We have health insurance and we have personal finance, but they're not separate. They're deeply connected. The average American spends thousands of dollars every year on healthcare. For many families, it's their second biggest expense after housing. And when data breaches happen, when settlements get paid, when compliance costs rise, all of that gets added to your bill. It's a hidden tax that nobody talks about. Now, I know what you're thinking, but Tom, I have good insurance through my job. Okay, fair point. But here's the reality. Even with good insurance, the average American family is still paying thousands out of pocket every year. Deductibles, co-pays, prescriptions that aren't covered. And when you add in the indirect costs, the higher premiums to cover all these breaches and settlements, you're looking at a significant portion of your income going toward a system that's fundamentally broken. This isn't just about healthcare. This is about financial freedom. Every dollar you spend on overpriced medical care is a dollar you can't invest, can't save for retirement, can't use to build wealth. It's a dollar that's being taken from your future self. And the worst part? Most people don't even realize it's happening. They just see the bills coming in and think, well, that's just how it is. No, that's not just how it is. That's how the system has been designed, to keep you paying, to keep you stressed, to keep you financially vulnerable. And healthcare is just the beginning. Workplace financial instability. Moving on from healthcare, let's talk about where most of us get our money: work. Now, here's a statistic that should make your blood boil. According to the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, workplace discrimination settlements are happening constantly. We're talking about millions of dollars changing hands. Columbia University had a $21 million settlement. Other companies are paying hundreds of thousands of dollars for discrimination lawsuits. Now, here's what most people don't realize about these settlements. They're not just legal issues, they're financial issues that affect every single working American. Here's the thing, when a company has to pay a massive settlement, that money has to come from somewhere. It doesn't come from the CEO's bonus. It doesn't come from shareholder profits. Well, sometimes it does, but more often it comes from somewhere else. It comes from cutting costs elsewhere. And what's the easiest cost to cut? Labor. Wages, benefits, training, development. Think about it. A company pays $200,000 for a discrimination settlement. Where do you think they're going to make up that money? They're not going to take it out of their marketing budget. They're going to freeze hiring. They're going to cut back on raises. They're going to reduce benefits. They're going to look for ways to do more with less. And who bears the brunt of that? The average worker, the person just trying to make ends meet. But here's where it gets even more interesting. The psychological impact of workplace instability on your finances is massive. When you're worried about discrimination, when you're concerned about retaliation, when you're stressed about whether you'll be treated fairly, that affects your performance. It affects your confidence. It affects your willingness to ask for a raise or pursue a promotion. You become risk-averse. You stay in a job that's not paying you what you're worth because you're afraid of what might happen if you speak up. And that fear has a real dollar amount attached to it. Let me give you an example. Tribbles. Say you're underpaid by just $10,000 a year. Over a 30-year career, that's $300,000 in lost earnings. Could be, but it's worse than that because of compound interest. If you had invested that $10,000 every year at a modest 7% return, you'd have over $1 million by retirement. That's what fear costs you. That's what workplace instability costs you. $1 million. Gone because you were too afraid to rock the boat. Now, look at the EEOC data. They're dealing with disability discrimination, pregnancy discrimination, sexual harassment, retaliation. These aren't abstract concepts. These are real issues that affect real people's ability to earn a living. And when people can't earn a living, when they're pushed out of jobs, when they're denied opportunities, that doesn't just hurt them, it hurts the entire economy. It reduces consumer spending, it increases reliance on social services, it creates a cycle of poverty that's incredibly difficult to break. Here's what most people don't realize about the workplace financial trap. It's designed to keep you dependent. When you're living paycheck to paycheck, when you're one missed payment away from disaster, you're not going to take risks. You're not going to start a business. You're not going to invest in yourself. You're going to keep your head down and do what you're told. And that's exactly what the system wants. Compliant workers who don't ask questions, who don't demand fair treatment, who don't fight for what they're worth. WO, because compliant workers are cheap workers. They're workers who will accept lower wages, worse benefits, and poorer working conditions. They're workers who will stay in jobs that are slowly killing them because they're afraid of what happens if they leave. And here's the kicker. The very agencies that are supposed to protect workers like the EEOC, they're dealing with thousands of cases every year. But for every case that gets filed, there are hundreds that don't. People who are too afraid to speak up. People who don't know their rights. People who think, well, that's just how it is. Sound familiar? It's the same mentality we saw with healthcare. That's just how it is. No, that's how they want you to think. Because if you think that way, you won't fight back. You won't demand change. You'll just keep paying, keep working, keep struggling. And the people at the top will keep getting richer. The data economy trap. Now, let's talk about something that might seem unrelated at first, but stick with me here. Data centers, artificial intelligence, the digital economy. According to Moody's outlook for 2026, demand for data center capacity is surging. Cloud companies are pouring billions of dollars into building these massive facilities. There are fears of an AI bubble as valuations soar. Now, you might be thinking, Tom, what does this have to do with my finances? Everything. Here's the thing, we're living in what I call the data economy, and in this economy, you're not the customer, you're the product. Your data, your health information from those breaches we talked about, your employment history, your spending habits, your location data, your search history, all of that is being collected, analyzed, and sold, and you're not getting paid for it. In fact, you're paying for the privilege of having your data stolen. Think about it. Those data centers Moody's is talking about, they cost billions to build and operate. They consume massive amounts of electricity. They require huge investments in infrastructure. And who pays for all of that? You do, through higher prices for everything. When you buy something online, part of that price is paying for the data center that stores your information. When you stream a movie, part of your subscription fee is going toward the cloud infrastructure. When you use a free app, you're paying with your data, which then gets monetized by companies you've never heard of. But here's where it gets really interesting. Moody's talks about the convergence of traditional finance and digital assets creating new risks. They talk about how blockchain and AI tools are disrupting the status quo. What they're not saying explicitly, but what's happening underneath, is that the financial system is being rebuilt around data, and most people don't even realize they're part of the construction crew. Let me give you an example. Private credit. Moody's mentions that private credit's rise is influencing asset origination. What does that mean in plain English? It means that more and more lending is happening outside of traditional banks. It's happening through algorithms, through data analysis, through AI models that decide who gets credit and who doesn't. And those decisions aren't based on your character or your work ethic. They're based on your data, your purchase history, your social media activity, your health information, all those data breaches we talked about. That information doesn't just disappear. It gets aggregated, analyzed, and used to make decisions about you. Decisions about whether you get a loan, what interest rate you pay, whether you get approved for an apartment, whether you get hired for a job. This is the hidden financial system, the one that operates in the background, collecting data, making decisions, shaping your financial life without your knowledge or consent. And here's the psychological insight. We've been conditioned to think of data as something abstract, as ones and zeros, as digital footprints. But it's not abstract, it's concrete. It has real financial value. Your data is worth money. Companies are making billions off of it, and you're getting nothing. Worse than nothing. You're paying for the infrastructure that enables this exploitation. Those data centers Moody's is so excited about, they're not just storing cat videos. They're storing the algorithms that determine your credit score. They're storing the AI models that decide whether you're a good risk. They're storing the blockchain ledgers that track every financial transaction you make. And all of this is happening while the average American is struggling to save $400 for an emergency. While people are working 2 or 3 jobs just to make ends meet, while retirement accounts sit empty because there's nothing left to save after paying bills. This isn't an accident. This is by design. The data economy extracts value from you at every turn. It monetizes your attention, your time, your information, your relationships, and it gives you back, what? A slightly more convenient shopping experience? A personalized ad? A free service that's actually costing you your privacy and your financial security? Here's what most people don't realize. The data economy is creating a new kind of wealth inequality. Not just inequality of money, but inequality of information. The companies that control the data, they know everything about you. They know your habits, your weaknesses, your fears, your desires, and they use that information to extract maximum value from you, to keep you spending, to keep you scrolling, to keep you engaged. And you know nothing about them. You don't know how their algorithms work. You don't know what data they're collecting. You don't know how they're using it. It's an information asymmetry of epic proportions. And in any negotiation, the party with more information has all the power. So when you're applying for a loan, when you're shopping for insurance, when you're looking for a job, you're at a massive disadvantage because the other side knows things about you that you don't even know about yourself. And they're using that knowledge to get the best possible deal for themselves, not for you, for themselves. The compliance cost burden. Now, let's talk about something that sounds boring but is actually costing you a fortune. Compliance, regulations, paperwork. According to the HIPAA Journal, healthcare organizations are spending millions on compliance, training staff, implementing security measures, managing incidents, dealing with breaches. The EEOC is enforcing discrimination laws. Companies are paying for legal teams, for settlements, for training programs. Moody's talks about compliance tools automating entity verification and monitoring. Here's what most people don't realize. All of this compliance costs money, a lot of money. And guess who's paying for it? You are. Every time a company has to hire a compliance officer, every time they have to implement new security measures, every time they have to pay for training or settle a lawsuit, those costs get passed along to consumers. They get baked into the price of products and services. They get factored into insurance premiums. They get considered when setting wages. Think about it this way. When a hospital has to pay $182,000 to settle HIPAA violations, that's not coming out of thin air. That's coming from somewhere. And that somewhere is you. Through higher medical bills, through higher insurance premiums, through reduced services. But here's where it gets really interesting. The psychological impact of compliance costs on your financial behavior. We've created a system where the cost of doing business, the cost of complying with regulations, the cost of preventing discrimination, the cost of securing data, all of that gets externalized. It gets pushed onto consumers, and because it's spread out across millions of people, nobody notices. Nobody says, hey, this medical bill is $10 higher because of compliance costs. Nobody says, this product costs 5% more because the company had to settle a discrimination lawsuit. It's hidden. It's buried in the fine print. It's distributed across so many transactions that it becomes invisible. And that invisibility is the whole point. Because if people could see exactly how much they're paying for corporate mistakes, for regulatory failures, for security breaches, they'd be outraged. They'd demand change. They'd stop buying from companies that can't protect their data. They'd stop working for companies that discriminate, but they can't see it because the costs are hidden, spread out, distributed. Here's another thing most people don't realize. Compliance costs create barriers to entry. They make it harder for small businesses to compete. Think about it. A giant corporation can afford to hire a team of compliance officers. They can afford the latest security software. They can afford to pay settlements when things go wrong. A small business? They can't. They're operating on thin margins. They don't have the resources. So what happens? They either cut corners, which puts your data at risk, or they go out of business. And when small businesses go out of business, that reduces competition. And when competition is reduced, prices go up, quality goes down, innovation slows. It's a vicious cycle. The compliance burden feeds corporate consolidation. It pushes power into the hands of a few giant companies. And those giant companies then have even more power to set prices, to control wages, to shape markets. They become too big to fail, too big to regulate effectively, too big to care about individual consumers. Now, let's talk about the human cost, because this isn't just about dollars and cents. It's about stress. It's about anxiety. It's about the mental load of navigating a complex, confusing, expensive system. When you're dealing with medical bills, you're not just dealing with numbers. You're dealing with fear. Fear of bankruptcy, fear of losing your home, fear of not being able to provide for your family. When you're dealing with workplace issues, you're dealing with stress. Stress about speaking up. Stress about retaliation. Stress about whether you'll have a job tomorrow. When you're dealing with data breaches, you're dealing with violation. The feeling that your privacy has been invaded, that your trust has been betrayed, that you're vulnerable in ways you don't even understand. All of this stress, all of this anxiety, all of this mental load, it has a financial cost. It affects your health, which increases your medical expenses. It affects your performance at work, which limits your earning potential. It affects your decision-making, which leads to poor financial choices. It's a feedback loop of financial stress. And the worst part? Most of the systems that are supposed to help, the healthcare system, the employment system, the financial system, they're not designed to reduce stress. They're designed to manage risk. Corporate risk, legal risk, financial risk, not your risk. Your well-being is collateral damage, a necessary sacrifice in the pursuit of profit in the name of compliance in the service of the system. And here's what's truly alarming. We're accepting this as normal. We're accepting that healthcare should be expensive and confusing. We're accepting that workplaces should be stressful and unfair. We're accepting that our data should be collected and sold without our consent. We're accepting that compliance costs should be hidden in the prices we pay. We're accepting all of this because we've been told there's no alternative. Because we've been conditioned to believe that this is just how modern capitalism works. But it's not. It's how broken systems work. It's how systems designed to extract maximum value from people work. And until we recognize that, until we start demanding something better, we'll keep paying. We'll keep struggling. We'll keep wondering why, despite working harder than ever, we feel like we're falling further behind. The digital finance revolution. Now, let's talk about what Moody's calls digital finance, blockchain, cryptocurrencies, AI-enhanced financial tools. According to their 2026 outlook, digital technologies are integrating once siloed areas like transition finance and private credit. New financial infrastructure is key to digital finance's continued growth. Here's what most people don't realize. This digital finance revolution isn't happening for you, it's happening to you. Let me explain. Moody's talks about cryptocurrencies playing a central role in healthcare ransomware attacks. They mention that one benefit of cryptocurrencies is greater financial accessibility for unbanked populations. But here's the reality. While cryptocurrencies might offer some benefits, they're also creating new risks. Der Stadt if the UAD are many of the arty of the new ways for criminals to extort money, new ways for wealth to be concentrated in the hands of a few, new ways for the financial system to become even more opaque and difficult to regulate. Think about it. Traditional banking has problems. We know that, but at least there's some oversight. At least there are consumer protections. At least there's insurance on deposits. With cryptocurrencies, not so much. If your crypto wallet gets hacked, your money is gone. If you forget your password, your money is gone. If the exchange collapses, your money is gone. And who's most vulnerable to these risks? Not the wealthy investors who can afford to lose money. Not the tech experts who understand the technology. The average person, the person who's struggling financially and sees crypto as a way out. The person who doesn't understand the risks but is tempted by the promise of quick riches. This is the dark side of the digital finance revolution. It's creating new forms of financial exploitation, new ways for people to lose what little they have, new ways for wealth to flow upward from the many to the few. Well, here's where it gets even more concerning. Moody's talks about AI-enhanced tools heralding a new era of automated assaults and malware. They talk about how AI offers new opportunities and risks. What they're not saying explicitly is that these AI tools are being used against you. They're being used to create more sophisticated scams, more targeted phishing attacks, more personalized manipulation. Think about it. With enough data, and remember, companies have tons of data about you, AI can create incredibly convincing fake messages. It can mimic voices. It can create fake videos. It can analyze your behavior patterns and predict your vulnerabilities. And it can use all of that to separate you from your money. Now, you might be thinking, but Tom, AI can also help with fraud detection. It can help secure financial systems. And you're right, it can, but here's the thing. The benefits of AI in finance are mostly going to institutions. The risks are mostly going to individuals. Banks use AI to detect fraud, to protect their assets. Companies use AI to analyze credit risk to protect their profits. But when AI is used to commit fraud, who bears the loss? You do. When AI is used to manipulate markets, who gets hurt? The average investor. The person with a retirement account. The person trying to save for their kids' education. This isn't a level playing field, it's an arms race. And in this arms race, the institutions have all the weapons. They have the data, they have the computing power, they have the expertise. You have, what? A smartphone and a prayer? Here's another thing Moody's mentions. The convergence of traditional finance and digital assets fuels new risks. As companies adopt powerful blockchain and AI tools to reach new markets, disruption of the status quo will shift the financial landscape. What they're really saying is that the rules are changing, the financial system is being rebuilt. And in this new system, the gap between those who understand the technology and those who don't is becoming a chasm that's increasingly difficult to cross. Think about it. To participate in the digital finance revolution, you need certain things. You need technical knowledge. You need access to technology. You need financial literacy. You need the ability to take risks. Now ask yourself, does the average American have those things? Does the person working 2 jobs to pay rent have time to learn about blockchain? Does the family living paycheck to paycheck have money to invest in cryptocurrencies? Does the person who's never had a bank account understand how digital wallets work? Of course not. The digital finance revolution isn't creating financial inclusion. It's creating financial exclusion. It's creating a 2-tier system. One tier for the tech-savvy, the wealthy, the connected, another tier for everyone else. And the tier for everyone else looks suspiciously like the old system, but with higher fees, more complexity, and greater risk. This is the ultimate financial trap. We're being sold a revolution. We're being told that digital finance will democratize wealth, that blockchain will create transparency, that AI will make everything more efficient. But what's actually happening? The same people who control the old system are positioning themselves to control the new one. The same inequalities are being reproduced in digital form. The same exploitation is happening, just with fancier technology. And the average American, they're being left behind. They're being told to adapt or die, to learn the new rules or get left in the dust. But here's the truth. You can't adapt to a system that's designed to keep you down. You can't learn rules that keep changing. You can't win a game where the house always wins. And in the digital finance revolution, the house isn't just winning, it's rewriting the rules in real time to make sure it keeps winning. Taking back control, right? We've covered a lot of ground here. Healthcare traps, workplace instability, the data economy, compliance costs, the digital finance revolution. It's enough to make anyone feel hopeless. But here's the thing, knowledge is power. And now that you know how the system works, now that you understand the traps that have been set for you, you can start to avoid them. You can start to take back control. First, let's talk about healthcare. You can't avoid getting sick. You can't avoid needing medical care, but you can be smarter about how you engage with the system. Question every bill, negotiate every charge, shop around for procedures, use telehealth when appropriate. Consider health savings accounts if they're available to you, and most importantly, protect your data. Be careful what information you share. Use strong, unique passwords for medical portals. Monitor your insurance statements for fraudulent charges. Remember, your health information is valuable. Protect it like you would protect your bank account. Second, the workplace. You need to understand your rights. The EEOC exists for a reason. Discrimination is illegal. Retaliation is illegal. You have protections. Use them. Document everything. Keep records of conversations, emails, performance reviews. And here's the most important thing. Don't let fear control your financial decisions. Yes, speaking up is risky. Yes, asking for a raise is uncomfortable. Yes, looking for a new job is stressful. But staying silent is riskier. Staying underpaid is more uncomfortable. Staying in a bad situation is more stressful in the long run. Calculate what your fear is costing you. Remember the $300,000 in lost earnings? That $1 million in lost retirement savings? That's the price of silence. Is it worth it? Third, the data economy. You can't opt out completely, but you can be more intentional. Use privacy-focused tools. Limit what you share on social media. Use ad blockers. Consider using privacy-focused search engines and email providers. And most importantly, understand that when something is free, you're the product. You're paying with your data, your attention, your time. Ask yourself if that's a trade you're willing to make. Fourth, compliance costs. You can't avoid these entirely either, but you can support businesses that treat their employees well, that protect customer data, that operate ethically. Your dollars are votes. Every time you spend money, you're supporting a certain way of doing business. Choose wisely. Support small businesses when you can. They're less likely to have massive compliance departments, but they're also more likely to care about their customers as individuals. Fifth, digital finance. Be skeptical. Be cautious. If something sounds too good to be true, it probably is. Don't invest in things you don't understand. Don't chase get-rich-quick schemes. Focus on the fundamentals. Build an emergency fund. Pay down high-interest debt. Invest in low-cost index funds. These might not be sexy. They might not make for exciting social media posts, but they work. They've worked for decades. They'll continue to work. Now, here's my final thought. The system wants you to feel overwhelmed. It wants you to feel like there's too much to learn, too much to do, too much to worry about. It wants you to throw up your hands and say, forget it, I'll just do what I've always done. Don't fall for it. Start small. Pick one area: healthcare, workplace, data privacy. Pick one and make one change. Then pick another. Then another. Financial freedom isn't about getting rich quick. It's about making better decisions consistently over time. It's about understanding the traps and avoiding them. It's about taking control of what you can control and letting go of what you can't. Look, I know this is a lot. I know it's overwhelming, but here's what I want you to remember. You're not alone. Millions of Americans are struggling with these same issues. Millions are feeling the same stress, the same anxiety, the same frustration. And that's actually good news, because where there's shared struggle, there's potential for shared solutions, collective action, for demanding better. The system isn't fixed. It's not immutable. It was created by people, and it can be changed by people, but change starts with understanding. Change starts with seeing the traps for what they are. Change starts with refusing to accept. That's just how it is as an answer. So here's your homework. Today, right after this video, do one thing. Check your medical bills. Review your employment contract. Update your passwords. Something, anything, just take one step. Because a journey to financial freedom doesn't start with a giant leap. It starts with a single step, and then another, until one day you look back and realize you're not in the trap anymore. You've climbed out. You've taken back control. And that, my friends, is worth more than any amount of money. That's true financial freedom. I'm Tom, and this has been Tom Thinks. If this resonated with you, if it made you think, if it made you want to take action, hit that subscribe button. Give this video a thumbs up. Share it with someone who needs to hear it, because the more people who understand how the system really works, the harder it becomes for the system to keep working against us. Thanks for watching. Now go take that first step.
Found this interesting? Subscribe to the channel. Give this video a like, share it out, and drop your questions or ideas in the comments. Until our next adventure.